I very much appreciate having this debate, and I appreciate all the contributions. I turn first of all to you, Irache, and say that technology maybe wasn't on our side, but my attempts to learn Spanish certainly enabled me to understand enough of your excellent speech to appreciate it very much, and I pay tribute to you for that. We face many, many challenges, as we all know. We have to modernise, we have to take the European Union forward. This is our task for the future. We need a geopolitical union, and I've outlined the principles which will guide us to this destination. A number of points have been raised this morning, which I'd like to make a few remarks. Yes, we do need to consider, are we for enlargement? Have we decided to enlarge the European Union? If we have, then we need to make the necessary internal reforms so that Europe can continue to function. And this is the reason why I have said what I have in terms of the need for reform. We can only enlarge if we move on from the unanimity rules and we have qualified majority voting on the central issues. We won't be able to do without changes to the treaty in due course, but we do need to agree that it's not a domination of minorities by majorities. It is simply a question of how we are able to act, how we are able to deliver the compromises which we desperately need in order to develop a successful democracy. And this is why I say what I am saying here this morning in terms of tax and foreign policy. We need majority decision-making to make us able to act. And of course, there are a large number of other questions which we're going to have to discuss in the context of enlargement and otherwise, because there are a number of prospective members waiting in the wings, but there are many countries in the European Union which, when we extend our solidarity more widely to countries as yet out with the EU, will feel the effects thereof. And therefore, we need to look at the specific steps which we will need to take looking towards the future, and we need to be realistic. We need to have the courage of our convictions and see what we need to do and do it. It is very, very unfortunate that 20 years ago we gave some prospects to the Western Balkan countries of accession to the European Union, and we have effectively taken no steps forward at all. This puts our credibility, our very credibility as the European Union, at stake and calls it into question. Many political families have participated in today's debate and have contributed indeed to the debate over the years and to taking forward the developments towards greater enlargement. Many countries are going to need major constitutional changes, and this is what I hope we will be able to see in the near future. In the context of North Macedonia, I hope the EPP will support us in our endeavours to support the necessary constitutional changes. We are firmly convinced that we've got to support enlargement and accession processes in the right way in each country and be open and supportive to the citizens in all these countries to bring them into the fold. But we need to do this in an orderly way, in a structured process. And the North and the South will only come together if we agree that we are united in our diversity, but that our diversity can in turn become our strength. And I should like to reiterate what I said during my speech, and it is this. As we look towards a future, a world which will have an additional 2 billion citizens, and we will still be 500 million here in this continent. If we don't act together, if we don't stand together, we will become irrelevant and insignificant. We will have no say on the future of the world. And therefore, we need to move away from the dominance which we shaped in past centuries, and we need to work to become a good and fair and committed partner based on unity and commitment to the global community. Many of you have spoken about the appalling atrocities and the war of aggression perpetrated by Russia. This is indeed a threat to peace and security in Europe and indeed to the entire world. Through the Russian attack, as we have seen, we have called into question our understanding of security, our policy of détente pursued by Willy Brandt and Helmut Schmidt down decades, we've seen that there are those who don't believe in borders, who think that the OSCE borders and the other political process which have delivered European borders can simply be torn up. Russia has on a number of occasions agreed in the context of these processes on the borders, but has now reverted to an imperialistic vision that might is right and that you can simply invade the territory of a neighbouring country should you be so minded. We will never stand by and watch this. We will never allow this. And this is why it is so important that we continue to support Ukraine throughout, right as long as it is necessary, and that Ukraine be able to rely confidently on our support. And I've listened carefully to all the contributions, many of them in German, throughout this debate from a number of different corners of the chamber. And from this, I have gleaned a number of conclusions. It is very important that we approach these issues in the right way. Germany is the biggest financial supporter of Ukraine. We are committed to continuing on this path because we wish to continue to support Ukraine in its battle to achieve independence again and in its battle for freedom. And Germany is also in the vanguard in terms of supplying weapons. There are those amongst you who have, I think, forgotten exactly what the reality is. Germany has supplied a large number of weapons and will continue to do so. And we have been decisive in the context of discussions with colleagues and others in deciding to send battle tanks, for example. Many people who were active in the debate some time back have simply disappeared from the field. But now we have done this, and this is with the support of the citizens at home and in conjunction with carefully crafted policy, which we shaped in conjunction with our colleagues so that we have a shared responsibility for a responsible, effective policy which serves the interests of Ukraine and the people of Ukraine. That is what Germany stands for. That's what Germany is committed to. Allow me just to pick up on a number of points in energy policy. I don't want to leave any doubt about the position that Germany espouses in the area of energy security and energy policy, not least in terms of as pursued by my government. We are, it is argued, notionally responsible for some 2% of global emissions. What are we doing to counter this? And what are we doing to deal with climate change and reduce emissions? Well, our economic innovation, our industrial innovation, our engineers, our entrepreneurs, our innovators and our technology are making a great contribution to enabling humanity to tackle climate change. This is something which we need to say loudly and clearly. The citizens of South America, of Asia, the citizens in Africa are able to aspire to living standards which we have in Europe, and we need to ensure that they can attain this, because it will only work for us if it works for them, and therefore we need to be able to have a universally available technology based on the industrial processes which we are developing and delivering that are globally available, and that is exactly what Germany is working to provide. We have committed ourselves that by 2045 we will have a CO2 neutral economy, and this means extensive electrification. It means more electricity production, as has been said on a number of occasions. It also means hydrogen rather than coal, gas and oil. But between now and 2045 is not even 25 years. We have therefore got to invest. And Germany is a country which is an industrial powerhouse. If 600 terawatt hours of energy is consumed, then we've really got to recognise that by the end of the decade, it's going to be at least 1/3 more than that. And by the 2030s, we're going to have to produce even more, considerably more, an order of magnitude more. And this will have to come from wind power on sea, on land, biomass, and other sources. And we're going to have 24/7 available energy, which means we've also got to work on batteries and on storage, and we've got to work on enabling industry to function with hydrogen, And there are many, many other challenges. But we can only address these challenges if we have the courage of our convictions, if we are honest about the magnitude of the challenges, and if we all work together. And that means the Commission, the Parliament, the governments, and that means that we have got to implement the goals that we've set ourselves in all these pieces of legislation and regulations. We have got to up our game here. The technology is there. We need the money. We need the investment. We need to accelerate so that we're investing at the pace that the challenge requires, so that we are up to the challenges. And this means for us half a dozen solar or wind power plants a day. It means thousands and thousands of pipes so that we can transport energy. It means interconnectors. It means offshore wind power plants, many, many more than today. Therefore, the Commission, the Parliament and the national governments need to have the courage of their convictions. They need to understand, yes, legislation is necessary to deliver the change that we need. And we can't succeed in everything overnight, but we need to mobilise. We need to mobilise the innovation that we have, the potential we have, and then we will generate economic development and investment, which will be an unparalleled improvement on what we have ever experienced in the past. Allow me to comment briefly on our shared economic and finance policy. I think that we have a good tale to tell here, because we have put together the Recovery and Resilience Fund. We have put together finance initiatives, which I was party to when I was Finance Minister of Germany, which have contributed very effectively to supporting the economy in the European Union. We were threatened by a global pandemic, which of course affected each and every country of the European Union. We came together on a basis of solidarity, in a spirit of cooperation. We worked together before the funds were even there, and we put together a framework, an architecture for European cooperation, which was unprecedented. And this is why we knew that we can now rely on this sort of cooperation going forward, and that the German government will play its role to the hilt where solidarity is required on each and every occasion in the future. But I would also say that we stand for stability, and that includes fiscal stability. And that means that we need to work in a rational way together in order to find the right solution. And this is what we have in our coalition treaty in Germany. And this is the logical consequence of long discussions, because we know we don't want to precipitate austerity crisis in any countries. But it does not mean that anything goes in fiscal terms. We need stability. This is critical. And we therefore need to limit debt. We need to ensure that we don't just see disproportionate, unlimited escalations of debt, because that simply exacerbates crises rather than helping to resolve them. And therefore we need a balance. And that is what drives our position. But with all that in mind, we will have hard negotiations ahead, certainly, but we will, on the basis of solidarity, come up with a solution which is acceptable to and applies well for all. There are those who have mentioned the policy of détente, and I myself have mentioned Helmut Schmidt and Willy Brandt. What I would like to say is this. If you look back at the longer arc of history, then you realise that Willy Brandt and Helmut Schmidt's policy of détente was also at one and the same time, a defence policy, and it enabled us to invest up to some 4% in our defence. But now we in Germany are saying that 2% of our GDP is to be invested in order to achieve the NATO goals. Then that is something which lies absolutely in the path, as a logical corollary of Willy Brandt and Helmut Schmidt's policies. It is a logical step further down that line. Let me say that we must not forget the context in which we are working today. The Russian attack is a threat. It is a huge threat because it is something which is grounded in the might is right approach, that might trumps right and law, and we cannot simply pretend that this is not the case. This is a very clear message that's being sent to us, one and all, and therefore here in NATO we have to leave no stone unturned to make quite clear that we are strong enough to stand up against this. We can and we will. We are an alliance of peace. We're a defensive alliance. We will stand up and be counted, and we will ensure that we return to the consensus both in Europe and globally. It's not revisionism, but we will not see changes to borders being enforced by violence and aggression. And therefore, I am delighted to be able to work in partnership with the European Parliament. I'm delighted to be able to work towards the future on the basis of courage, conviction. Yes, of course, there are times when lengthy, protracted negotiations are necessary, but results can be achieved. And in a world of pluralism, in a world of liberal democracies, where alliances across member states are so important, it is all the more important that we come together to find a compromise way forward, that we stand together. The way that we stand together doesn't simply mean that the Holy Ghost will appear and that we will all, as a miracle, agree. It means that we will use our inspirations, that we will work together, that we will work with partners, both within national parliaments and here, to achieve these high goals that we've set ourselves. Democratic debate must lead to a result which is good for all of us and, above all, good for the future of the European Union. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chancellor Scholz. Thank you, dear colleagues. We will move now to the votes and allow the Chancellor to leave the room. Thank you.